Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hope you guys are doing well today. It's Michael Daly, your host of the Real 1% podcast. And today we got another special guest. This one's a little bit more near and dear to my heart, man. I've known him personally for several years now. He's actually the first person I reached out to when I needed help when I got out the military, not knowing what I was doing. So, my boy Manny Nunez, he's a retired staff sergeant, medically retired from the Army. He has a vast experience and knowledge in banking. 5 years before he served, he was in the banking industry. So if we got any questions about that, we get him up. He was also a human resource sergeant, airborne, air assault, 11 years in the U.S. Army. After he got out the military, he continued to serve the veteran population. He was a VSO, which is a veteran service officer in Montgomery County. That's where Fort Campbell is. He did that for 5 years. He was also a veteran service representative, and he was a VSR up in New York for 4 months. And I'm pretty sure he was one of the big wigs up there doing his thing like he's always done, taking care of soldiers. He's also worked at the post office, Lee County permitting department, and recently at an airline. So without further ado, man, as I used to call him back in the day, Sergeant Nunez, how you living, man?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Doing good, man. Taking it
Not
one day at a
bad.
time.
Yes, sir, man. I remember. Damn, I can remember 2007, dude. Met you back when I was a private. First getting to the unit, you were walking around with your maroon beret, squared away up there, 129 at Fort Campbell, man. So it's crazy how time flies. How you been living over the years?
So far, so good. It's every day is a new day and it's a new opportunity. You
Uh-oh, lost him, I think. Hello.
take things as they.
I lost you after you said new day, new opportunity. So anything you said after that, my bad. Then we lost service. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that you got a bit of a connection issue there. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I'm doing good. Everything is doing cozy down here. Every day is a new opportunity to learn new things. So
Too easy. Hey, got quick question to start off. What made you want to join the army, man? I know I've never really asked you that question, but I'm curious to hear your answer.
well, I joined the military in 2004 in January. It's a mixture of reasonings why. I got out of the high school. I graduated high school in the year 2000. I was in a what they call the police and fire program.
Okay.
Basically, in the high school in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey was built so those that want to join the armed forces or like civil service, like the police department and fire department. If you have so many credit hours through the high school year, you went into that program for your last year, and you basically went to school for half of the school year in the morning, and then the other half of the day, you went to the police academy and the fire department academy for the entire year. So I kind of got a good training out of both. And one of the first things that I was told was that if I wanted to get ahead, my dream was to become a cop. You know, I wanted to become a cop. And I was told that if I wanted to go ahead and get ahead in the police department, that I should join the armed forces. So I made a push to join the armed forces, and my guidance counselor at the time was a Marine guy. And he said, "Hey, let's join the Marines." So I kind of signed up for the Marines, started doing all the prep, the training. And when it came time to join the Marine, go to the sign up the contract, they said, "Well, we don't have any, police officers job in the Marines available at this time." This was in 2000, July 2000.
Okay.
And I said, cool, but I want to be a cop, so whatever you have that is similar to it, I'll take. And they were like, well, we have what is called infantrymen. Now I didn't speak as much English as I do now back then. I kind of refined my English in the U.S. Army.
Okay.
And so the guy was like, well, it's an infantryman. It's a job that is similar to it. I said, infantryman. He said, yeah. I was like, oh, isn't that the people that when shit hit the fan, they're the first front person, right? Like, yeah. I'm like, no, take me home. That's not what I want to do. I mean, it's I laugh about it now, but it was not a laughing matter then. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
This
Absolutely.
that's July. I was supposed to ship out July 6th of 2000, July 7th of 2000, and they took me back home. So I never looked back to it. I was already working at a bank. I was a full time at a bank. And within a year from that, I became what they call head teller, basically the supervisor for the cashiers, the tellers.
Okay.
And within 6 months from that, I became an assistant manager, service manager, and I kind of kept on being, pushing forward to advance in my career in the banking industry. And then in 2003, I had a mishap, and along with everything that was going on, I kind of got frustrated, and I turned in a 2 weeks notice, and I joined the army.
What? How was it? How was it going to the recruiter when you went to the army? Did they pretty much say you could have this job or that, or they promise you anything, or because
You
you were
know,
42 Alpha, right?
I wanted to do when I was in the army. Excuse me, before I joined the army, because I was in banking already, everything was dealing with finances and things of that nature. Um, I wanted to stay within those two jobs. I wanted to stay within, finance, human resource. And the third option that I had was for air traffic control, like aviation, because I lived 15 minutes from Newark Airport in New Jersey, and then I live, a good 45-minute drive, maybe at the most, from JFK and LaGuardia and all that. So I thought, air traffic controller is a good job. I was thinking about my future after I got out of the military after 4 years. And when I was doing the contract, the guy was like, "You got a pretty good score. You could, pretty much whatever job you want." But then I was not a U.S. citizen yet.
Okay.
So they were like, "Well, you can't get a clearance, so you cannot go into the air traffic controller, and you cannot go into the finance because of, my legal status. I was a legal resident, legal alien, but I was not a U.S. citizen."
Okay.
So the recruiter, team recruiter, I actually have a good relationship with one of them still. They were pretty cool. They were down to earth, and of course you got to have that personal touch and personality when you're a recruiter. Um, and they were pretty down to earth. They kind of said, okay, these are the things you can and cannot do. They saw that I was pretty fit, being 23-year-old, but I was still young at heart and full of energy. You know what I mean? It's not 23. You're not that old. You're still young. You're still trying to experience and learn.
Oh yeah.
And so the guy was like, "Cool, we'll push for human resource. They'll give you an entering clearance, and then you can get your clearance afterwards." So I did. They actually approved me for an entering clearance when I was in AIT, and I became, a human resource specialist. That was that was kind of shocking to join. Going from the civilian sector to the military. It was a little bit um, shocking. I don't think I have any other word for it.
No, nothing like joining the military. What was it like when you first? Because you went to Fort Campbell first duty station, and I know you guys deployed before I got there in 2007 to Iraq. So, like, were you pretty much out the door as soon as you got there?
So I joined January 2004,
Okay.
and funny thing, there was a drill sergeant when I was in basic that I had a lot of respect for him. He was from the Bronx, and he kind of hang out with some people that I used to hang out with. So we kind of got to talking about it, and he was pretty cool. It was nice to see that some person that grew up sort of speaking in the same environment that I was, he was making it big. He was doing all right.
Yeah.
And one day we were having this smoking session, and you know how they call them, man. It was
Yeah.
raining, pouring rain, and you're dragging your face in the dirt in South Carolina. They call it relaxing Jackson, but it's really not much relaxing out of it. And they stress the hell out of you. But I understand it's a way to break the cycle, from being in the civilian sector to going into the military.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really hit me was when he says, "Some of you are going to be deployed within the next 6 months from today. So this is not a joke. Learn and, do your best to, stay alive." And that was
Right.
while he was cold dragging us. It was raining. It was hot. It was getting dark. Some of the younger kids were crying. Because, I mean, realistically, I was 23, and you have some 18-year-old that were whining and complaining about certain things. They never been put through a situation like that. But I grew up in a self-developed country, so for me, it was like, okay, I just got to deal with this, and that's it. And then I got to Fort Campbell, uh, June 28th of 2004, and I went through the reception, our consul there, and I think that's how I pronounce it, in
Yeah.
101st, and the one of the guys that was doing the newcomers brief, he said, "Welcome to Fort Campbell, home of the 101st Airborne Division, the only air assault in the world. But we train and prepare to deploy within 72 hours, within 72 hours notice. Get yourself ready, leave your backpacks because you might be tagged and you'll be one of those. I will never forget that. Then we had the fourth. That was after we had the Fourth of July weekend. Came back to Fort Campbell at the Fourth of July weekend. They sent me to 129 CSSB. Um, at the time, it was 129 CSB, Combat Support Battalion. Um, when I came back, they sent me there, and that was a bit of a shocker too because I went as a private, and I had my sergeant who was just a year older than me. And while I'm getting in process, I see all this commotions that are going on around me, and I have this E5 sergeant that is trying to maintain an organized section of the S1. He has 6 soldiers. He couldn't keep up with those 6 soldiers. And for me, it was like, oh hell! I went from banking where I was dealing with $1 million a day at least in cash, and I had 18, employees between tellers and customer service rep, to now being a private, and my sergeant was a year older than me, was struggling to contain 6 soldiers. So that was even more shocking to the whole culture of the military for me. But Fort Campbell, as many service members know, anybody who's been in the military, especially in the U.S. Army, knows Fort Campbell is it's a different animal. When you talk about 101st and you talk about 82nd, you have those names that have a history and a trajectory that you have to keep up with it.
Yeah. So, how long were you there at Fort Campbell before you end up deploying to Iraq the first time?
I guess that was part of the first question. So I got there July, to the week of July, and my unit was already doing SRP for deployment. So
Okay.
I got there July. That gave me July, August, September, October. I was going to Iraq. So we
So
were doing.
they were on the you guys were doing a year or 15 months at that point.
No, at that time we did 12 month. We did 12 month.
Okay.
The next deployment was a 15-month deployment.
Right.
That my first that was 12 month only. It was kind of cool. It was the only thing that I hate about that deployment. And again, it was a learning experience. My sergeants that were training me at the time, they were ex-infantry reclass to support MOS, and I got great training from them. You know, they were they had a lot of knowledge. They were deployed in the previous deployment because they had just gone back from a deployment 6 months before. So when I got there, these guys were just on a rotation, and a lot of them they kind of share all their knowledge, everything they did, what they experienced when they were there, and they were training us really good for that 6 month SRPs process. And we had a 30-day field exercise. And when it came time to get on the aircraft in Fort Campbell, um, most of those guys were staying back, and to me that was it was a bit shocking. So I made a promise to myself that I would never train my soldiers to deploy when I could not deploy, and that I'll explain to you that later on in the conversation why that played a big role because I ended up getting out because of it, But I always
Okay.
made that, because I saw those guys that I put all my trust in it because I have a really young unit, so we didn't have that much experience, and the guys that I was counting on to kind of share the experience when we were in the combat zone, they were staying back. They were waving me off from the sideline, like have a nice
Damn.
trip, and that was shocking, but again, it was all part of a good learning experience.
How did the deployment go for you when you went down range for those 12 months? Did you learn a lot? Did you do a lot? Did you do all S1 stuff? Did you get tasked out with other things? How'd that go for you?
It's one of those things like you probably heard 1,000 times. Most of us, it is one of our most missed memories. Is being in a combat environment because you kind of strand those bonds between you and your battle buddies. You actually built a brotherhood, sisterhood when you're in combat. It's stronger than when you are stateside.
Absolutely.
And when I got there was a bit of a scary moment because you only see about war what you see in the movies, you know. And despite you knowing that your MOS is not a combat MOS, you still have the fear that you might have to turn into a combat MOS. Remember, we are trained as infantry, and then you go into your job, but that's the reason why you get trained as. And when I got there, we got there really late at night. They put me in the cockpit to go from Kuwait to Iraq, and as the plane was landing, it went straight head down to land. And when you was looking out the window, you could see the tracer bullet coming out the windshield of the aircraft, and it was kind of scary. So I'll ask the pilot what is it. They were like, "Oh, there's a bullet." I'm like, "Well, shit, there's a tracer." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Man, that was scary," and you just kind of like, "What did I got? What did I get myself into?" That's one of the questions that you kind of get in your head. So
Dude, that's great. Oh, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, we landed late at night. It was dark already, and they put us in this building, and this building had a diagram of, like a fire escape uh, plan or route, which is kind of crazy. Why would you have that in a building when you're in a combat zone, right? But hey, they had to have that, and they had a map drawn to scale as to how far was the wire from the building we were staying in. It was a LSA Anaconda in Balad. And I told my sergeant, I was like, "Hey, man, if this is drawn to scale, that village is really close. I could probably, throw a rock at it." You're like, "Oh man, don't worry about that. You'll see it in the morning. They're probably way out there. They just draw it like that for you to, know where you're located at." So I'm like, "All right, cool." Man, about 4 in the morning, I got this banging on the wooden door that we had. We had a room with a wooden door. We had like 8 people living in one little room inside that building. And he comes knocking, and it's like, "Man, hey Nunez." I'm like, "What's going on?" Staff Sergeant Flood, man. I would never forget him. And like, "Hey man, that building, the village, it's actually like right across the wire, like right there." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Yeah, like you could throw a rock at it, literally." I was like, "Man." So add to my anxiety, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm across from the enemy line, Like if I could throw a rock at it, I'm pretty sure they could throw a mortar. But it was fun. We built a pretty strong bond with everybody that was there. Everybody look out after everybody. We had to the first 3 months. It was more like an adjustment process. It's like being in a new relationship. You now got to deal with the other person's bad habits. You got to get accustomed to it. So it was the same thing for us in the combat environment. We had to adjust to everybody's habits and do's and don'ts.
No, you're right, dude. It's crazy that you were saying the thing about the getting shot at the C-130 from Kuwait because I literally had the same exact experience, dude. And I always tell people that story. I've told it earlier today. I've told it when I was talking to someone else, Wayne, on a podcast I did before this one. And same thing, dude. Get on the C-130 from Camp Buring and then fly to TQ. And then we just did it. They just turned they just started doing that combat landing, dude, like crazy going down, and I just remember holding on to the red cargo net, and I felt like my stomach was in my throat, dude. And I was like, "Oh my, this is worse than a roller coaster, bro." So we had the same experience with the same unit, dude. And I joined 2007 January, like you, for 3 years after you, and I deployed October 2007, just like same cycle, dude, as you. It's same unit, so it's kind of crazy to experience the same
Yeah.
thing. I don't know if you felt the same as me. I can't do roller coasters. I get motion sickness, but dude, I was praying and just holding on to that red cargo net, sweating my ass off, and just like, God help me get on, just get me off the plane. And the crazy part is, we did 15. We were supposed to do 15 months, but we did 13 and a half. But we all got a chance to go to Qatar for a 4-day pass, and I was like, I don't even want to go. I'll just take mine here because I just want to get on the plane and go home because I was shell. I didn't like that, dude. I was like, I don't want to get
Yeah.
shot again, bro. So
You should
great.
have gone to Qatar, man. That would have been a great experience to have. I
I
enjoyed it.
know.
When I went with Chris Fontenot. I don't think when you
No,
arrived to the unit, he was there. He was already gone, probably to Maryland. But that was a great experience. It's something that I appreciated and enjoyed at the time as well because that was 6 months after my deployment. Stress was high. You're a private. You're trying to make it big. You're trying to move up. You're trying to learn. I was still adjusting to the military mentality, and I was bumping head with some people, and It was like a power struggle, but it was more like you don't really have to have a power struggle with me. I'm a responsible individual, and I understand you outrank me. So you do your job, I do mine, and just give me the stuff that I need to do. Give me the part. Tell me how to prioritize it because your priorities are different than mine. And as a supervisor, we will get there. We'll work it out. And
Yeah.
it was kind of a lot of unnecessary stress, but I understand it's all part of the process, I guess. And my first sergeant said, "Hey, uh, I'm going to send you to Iraq, to Qatar for 5 days, so you could kind of sit back and get a little break and relax and come back refreshed." And I said, "Hell, I'll take it." And I went with Chris Fontenot, man, and that was a great experience to have there.
No, you're right, dude. I looking back on it, I know I should have done that and try to just get in the plane and get on with it. But yeah, man, it's all. I'm glad you got to enjoy that and get a little reset. Everyone deserves it being over there that long. So what you ended up doing after the deployment was over? I know you came back to Campbell, and like what'd you end up doing for the rest of your time in the military?
So again, I was always goal driven. Like I had plans, I had goals. In fact, the deployment that you went on to, I was supposed to get out that January.
Yeah.
So you remember good old Sergeant Major.
Oh yeah, Delbert.
I I had my wife was pregnant and I had a newborn. And because my plan was to get out in that January, I really have made no plans to continue my military career. And 90 days, I have over 90 days of vacation time. And from the date that you guys were supposed to deploy to my ETS day was 90 days. So I had asked him, hey, let me shift over to another unit, another battalion that is not fenced in, that I could actually, just get out, do my time and get out. And he said, nope, you coming with me for 15 months and that's it. And I was like, man, that kind of sucks. So I was kept on arguing with him about not arguing, but trying to plead with him. Let
Yeah.
me get out. I don't want to get on stop loss. And he said, well, cool, fine. You gonna come with me for 15 months, or you gonna stay on my real attachment for 15 months? And I was like, man, you're not making this any easier. Then some first class Johnson, he's now a retired master sergeant. Um, he told Sergeant Major because Sergeant Major wanted for him to stay back as a real detachment sergeant major. Um, and he wanted to have a functional real detachment battalion because in our previous deployment, our real detachment battalion was a ghost. We could never get a hold of the real detachment. So he said they want to have a functional real detachment. So he left Sergeant Johnson to stay back as a sergeant major. But Sergeant Johnson told him that the only way he would stay as a real detachment sergeant major was if I stayed back as CS1. So that's how I ended up not going to that deployment and staying back. So Sergeant Major was plan was to leave 4 soldiers in the S1 and take me, Sergeant First Class Ketchum, and another private, and or leave me and take everybody else. So that's what ended up happening. But from there, when you guys came back, I went over to Fifth Group Special Force. That I took a short time there. That's a whole different animal in itself. From there, within a year of that, I was shipped out to South Korea for second CAV, second ID. I love it. That was a whole different animal. That's the beauty of the MOS that I had. You get to go to different type of environments and learn from each of those environments while you're still doing your job, but your focus changes. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and sustainment brigade is all about supporting more as transportation, supply, communications and things like that. When I went to fifth group, it was all about the operators. When I went over to second CAV, second ID in South Korea, it was all about the pilots, the aviators. I did a year in South Korea. I enjoyed it. I got to experience the culture there. I have a bit of mixed feelings about that, but it was a great time. Then from there, I came back to North Carolina, Fort Bragg, or Camp Liberty, I think is what it's called now.
Okay.
Um, I was part of 10th MPCID, the Criminal Investigation Division, the battalion, and within 90 days of getting there, I was shipped over to Afghanistan.
Damn.
So I kind of, just got my wife situated, got the kids in school, got them in childcare at the time, My wife started a new job right away, and let's do this 90 days deployment prep, SIP, and be on the way to Afghanistan. And when I came back, after a year of deploying in Afghanistan, they made me the detachment sergeant, that's a staff sergeant for the CID with headquarters. And I was there for about 8 months as a detachment sergeant, 9 months. And then I decided to PCS out of there. I was supposed to go to Italy, but I changed those orders so that I could go to Fort Campbell rather. I had a bit of a financial bind that going to Italy was not gonna be beneficial for me. So I rather, head back to Fort Campbell 101st, and that's what
So,
ended up happening.
dude, you're bouncing around to all the big bases that just go nonstop. Anyone knows the military, especially the Army, knows Fort Campbell's rapid deployment, 82nd deployment. You probably went to Korea unaccompanied on a tour for a year and probably worked a lot too, because that's what Korea is known for, the mission. And you said you were working with the aviation, so they're going nonstop day and night as well. But I was gonna ask you, man. Like, obviously, I didn't have any. I have a son now, but I had him when I first got out the military. And I mean, just I knew you had your little ones on the way. One there, one on the way. Twitty had kids. All you guys had these kids. I just wanted to ask you, like, what was that like being, trying to have a family unit while you're in the military? Obviously, hard is what come to mind first, but I wanted to ask you for your opinion on that.
So I've been blessed with the wife that I have, and she's been a blessing because she never interfered with the military. She understood that I was in the military when I met her, and that the military came first, so to speak, because of the situation. You kind of swear an oath to protect and defend, and that you're gonna do everything you get asked to do. And she understood that. There was no saying no to what the military asked of me, and she basically held down the fort for me, so I didn't have to worry about the things at home. Of course, you always try to alleviate the stress that you have going on at home, and you try not to bring the stress from home to work. You kind of compartmentalize those things. You keep the army in the army, you keep the home at home.
Yeah.
But I was blessed with the fact that she understood and she was able to back me up and basically have my six the whole time. So I can't complain about that at all.
Respect to your wife and you, then, man, holding it together. Because in the military, it's not easy to have that family unit together, and especially with the deployments. You've heard the horror stories, man. People go deployment, they got someone cheating on them, or they get their bank account drained, or both, or they took
I,
everything. You know how it goes, man, right?
I was a victim of that in my first marriage, brother. So trust me, I know.
Oh, damn.
I don't. Yeah. So it happens more often than what we are like. But that's actually what it depends how you take it. You take it as a learning experience. I was young. My ex-wife was young. I kind of try to put my mind and my head and time to understand that what might have been the reasoning. Like I said, I only got 90 days from the time that I got to Fort Campbell to deploy, and that's exactly the time I spent with my ex-wife in Fort Campbell. And
Yeah,
by the time I came back, it was more like, okay, let's just go your way and I go mine because of what happened during that time.
right.
But it's most of us back then did go through that process because the resources were not there for the soldier nor the spouse. You know,
That's true.
um, when you came in the military in 2007, we were still using our chaplain as our counselor. We didn't have healthcare, psychologists and or social worker to deal with our mental health issue. You went to your chaplain. And
Right.
and I remember when I found out everything that was going on in Iraq, I had this chaplain, and I can't remember what his name was, but he was a big, I mean, he was 6'4", black dude, football player body type.
Yeah.
And he used to make fun. He like, oh, I came on this 6-month Air Force tour because he went to replace our chaplain who lost it because everything that he was taking in from all the soldiers. And that chaplain lost it. He came with us and he lost it. We lost a soldier and he dealt with all that. He had that and he couldn't cope with it and they sent us a new chaplain. So now this chaplain One of my bottle buddy had told him about what was going on with me and my ex-wife, and the chaplain was like, "Hey, let's go to lunch, at the DFAC." And all right, and he was just trying to get it out of me that what I had going on at home, but I wasn't gonna let what was going on at home interfere with the job. So then he realized that everything that I was dealing with, I was handling it in a proper way or in a way that was not going to affect me, nor I was going to go crazy because of the situation. So he kind of let it go. He just kind of kept an eye on me. But that's all we had to rely on. It was a chaplain. We didn't have mental health therapists. We didn't have behavioral health counselor. We didn't have social worker. The only thing we had was our buddies and the chaplain. We wanted to go talk to the chaplain. And for me, I was fortunate enough that the chaplain kind of fell under the S1. So I would not be perceived as somebody who's, oh, you're going to the chaplain to cry and complain and whine when I stepped into his office just to chill and hang out and, just talk to him about whatever issue I had or whatnot. But perception in the military is a big deal. So whenever you walk into the chaplain's office and you not in your workplace, automatically people kind of assume that you weren't there to kind of cry and whine and complain about something. And so
That's
that
true.
was that was another bad perception that we had back then that was completely different than what it is now. Now the
Yeah.
perception is also that you go into the behavioral health counselor to cry or whine and complain about something. Not understanding that sometimes that just actually does really good. It help you get it off your chest and for you to move along from the issue, you know. But if you keep it bottled in, it don't matter how long you go through it. If you're not releasing that information to someone, you keeping it to yourself, it hurts you more in the long run.
Yeah, not only you, but the people that you're around, your team, your unit. I mean, all that. It shouldn't be like you know how it goes, man. You were ready for me, and I know it well. I was in like you were weak if you went to sick call. You're the talk of the town, or this that,
Yeah.
like or you going through SRP, and they say if you do this, you're not going to deploy. Like everyone's probably. It's kind of sad to say it, but like people were kind of looking forward to the deployment and make a little bit more money or do this or do that because as we know, you're not paid handsomely as a lower enlisted soldier, even as an NCO. If you're a young NCO, you're not making like crazy money. I mean, yeah, it could be better than other places, but you're always a soldier 24/7, and that money doesn't really equate to too much per hour or whatever you want to do the math. But yeah, I didn't really think of it like that, man. You put the chaplain thing in perspective, like they didn't have the social workers or the healthcare workers in place at that time. That's something that I guess overcame and put in place for the soldiers to use as a resource. But people don't look at it like that, man. They're like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to open up. That's kind
I'm
of
a,
setting yourself up for failure.
I'm gonna give you another perspective on that, right? So think about the time you came in. You still used the chaplain a little bit, and
Yeah,
shortly after that, then we started going to social work and behavioral health counselor.
yeah,
When I started working as a veteran service officer in 2014, that became a challenge, but it's also something to my knowledge that I could validate because now I'm dealing with Gulf War veterans, OIF one, OIF two veterans, OIF three veterans that that I share a common battleground with them, uh, and some Vietnam veterans, and even some Panamanians, people that went to Panama and things like that, right? And filing claims with the VA for behavioral health issues, right? And I say issues because under the VA for behavioral health issues, you got everything. It's a big branch. You have anxiety, you have depression, you got PTSD, you have this associated disorder, you have personality disorder, you have bipolar disorder, you have a large amount of conditions individually that sometimes VA likes to wrap them up into something.
yeah.
But the VA's key element is show me in your medical history and your medical records where you got treated for this thing when you was in the service. and
There you
and
go.
it's challenging because you don't have that medical records because a chaplain did not kept medical records.
Damn.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
It was more like, so what do I do next? I don't have a way to show proof that I have this medical issue because there was there was no documentation.
So what would be the telltale sign to get that like? not really the telltale sign. What would you do to show the proof then? Like as a VSO, what would you be able to do? Do you have to give them deployment orders? What would you have to give them?
So, fortunate for the veterans and the VA system, they kind of acknowledged that there wasn't a healthcare department that was built early enough in the military to where they could keep track of those documentation. So they kind of left it as a like an open window per se, an opportunity for the veteran to explain how, what, when, and why. You know, that's where the 4187 basically for the Army, for 4138 for the VA became a big tool. And I think now they actually use a different form for the PTSD support form. And I
Okay.
can't think of the number at the top of my head, but basically you tell the VA the whys,
Right.
what, when, where, why. So you tell the VA the place that where were you located at, where were you stationed at, what was happening, what created these issues for you, and the VA will basically just validate, confirm that you was deployed in that combat environment or you was in that location, and kind of give you credit for what you stated that your experiences were.
Okay. Okay. All right. Before we start diving into the VSO stuff, I just want to ask you how did the medical retirement all come into effect? Because I know you said you wanted to touch on that what we were talking about earlier, but how did your military career pretty much come to an end? Were you planning for it? Was it abrupt? Tell me little bit
So,
about that.
2005 in that deployment in Iraq, I started having stomach issues. I started having a bit of vulnerability on my stomach. I started having constipation and diarrhea and throwing up, nauseous, and things of that nature were upsetting my stomach easily. And it had nothing to do with the food. It was be at night, early in the morning, middle of the day, whether I ate or not. And every time I went to sick call, they said, well, there's nothing that we could do. It seemed like maybe the seasoning and so on and so forth. Now, every time you drank water in Iraq, they used to put these pallets out in the road wrapped in plastic. They'll drop them off at certain corners, locations.
Yeah.
And those pallets were sitting in the direct sun,
Yep.
wrapped in plastic. So you'll cut the plastic that was wrapping the pallets, and then you cut the plastic of the cases of water to get your bottled water. I'm not saying that is what caused my stomach issue, but you got boiling water inside plastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I at a point I went to we had like an Air Force hospital, so to speak, inside Balad. And the guy was like, look, you need more medical research, and unfortunately, we don't have that stuff here, so we have to wait till when you get stateside, just go back there and take a look at it, and they'll do more back exams and evaluation. So upon my return from Iraq, I kept on going to the doctor every now and then because I would have this mean stomach pain, like somebody was stabbing me on my stomach. And every time I went to sick call, I would wait till I got out of work because I didn't want to be part of the predicament, the sick
Yeah.
call ranger. I didn't want to be part of that. So I will wait till 5, 6 o'clock when we got out of work, 7 o'clock, and I'll go to the emergency room. And I will wait 3, 4 hours in the yard because I was not a priority, because I just had a stomach pain. And then I'll get released at 3, 4 in the morning, and I'll just go home, take a shower, and go to PT. And I kept on doing that. And even on the weekends, I'll go in on a Friday and I'll get released on a Sunday because they'll say, oh, you're dehydrated. They'll put an IV. They'll do some lab work. Now you got to wait 24 hours for the blood result to come back and things of that nature. So after 2.5 years of getting nowhere, uh, Sergeant Major Hoskins said, hey, I'm going to refer you to my PA because he saw me on the hallway, rolling around because of how much pain I was in. And he was like, he knew that I was not a sick call ranger. He knew that I was, do my best to be the best soldier there was. So he knew that my issue was actually something of concern. And when I went to his doctor, it happened to be the same primary care provider that I had, that I was seeing. So it really didn't do me any good. But the last drop that filled the cup was that when I went to see him, that he realized it was me. He said to me, and I will never forget this, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got tiny heart syndrome.
Wow. Sounds about right for it. Sounds about Fort Campbellish, dude. Take a knee. You broke your leg, take a knee and drink water, take ibuprofen, get up and finish.
Yeah.
Get up.
So
Yeah.
I said, you know
Jesus.
what? Never mind. So I went to the patient's advocate at the hospital. Man, I was pissed, and I kind of just wanted to get to the bottom. I wanted to get somebody to give me an authorization to go outside of the military facility to go see a doctor.
Okay.
And I kept on getting the runaround, and I was told no because I was a soldier's dude. They were not going to authorize that. And I was so pissed that I went to the hallway to kind of take a deep breath. And in doing that, one of the guys that was inside, he came out. He was a retired first sergeant, and he said, "Look, I understand you had these issues. When I was in the military, I had an issue pretty much like yours, but I happened to go home on vacation to go visit my mom, and I got sick, and I went to the hospital there. I mean, I was so pissed, Mike, that I that did not register. But what he was basically telling me was, take your vacation, go home, and go to the hospital.
Okay.
The military's gonna pay for it. You happen
Right.
to be an R&R, and you got sick. But I did not register that because how pissed I was. So fast forward 6 months later, I go to Jersey to see my family for Christmas, and I got really sick and I got hospitalized. But I was in a 4 pass weekend or 4 day weekend, and I was so scared to miss my deadline and be marked as AWOL that I shot myself out of the hospital. I was like, you let me go, I'm gonna walk out of here in this gown because I need to go back to Fort Campbell. You know, I can't. If they wanted to keep me there for 72 hours, I only have 24, 48 hours left to check back in. I was like, I'm not doing that. So they gave me some medications to bring down the inflammation. They said that one of my intestines was enlarged to the size of a football. So they said there was a blockage somewhere in there. So the doctor gave me some antibiotics, some medication for me to take on my way back. And on my way back, I kept on stopping to throw up. And I told my wife, I'm not going to make it to Fort Campbell. If I do, they're going to let me die over there. And we stopped
Jesus.
in Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville.
Okay.
And I spent New Year's of 2007, 2008 in the hospital. 14 days later, after they opened me up in a couple of places on my stomach with some scopes and some things, they said, hey, yeah, you have Crohn's disease. So after 3 years of going to the doctor continuously, this started in 2005, and now I'm all the way down to 2008. They finally said, "This is what's wrong with you. So here's your medication. Here's what's gonna treat it." They put me on, um, what's that called? Jesus, it, it's it makes you gain a lot of weight.
Okay.
Um, anyway, I was put on that medication for 5 years, which I shouldn't. It was supposed to be a temporary medication for 3 months. Um, but I was on it for about 5 years. And now with that medication and some other anti-acid and things of that nature, I was not having those pains no more. So that kind of did the work. I was okay for the time being, but I still had the medical condition. I still getting hospitalized. 3, 4 times a year. I will go check myself in on a Friday, check on a Sunday morning, go to work afterward. Nobody will even know that I was hospitalized, because of the way I was doing it. But finally, in 2013, when I got back to Fort Campbell from being in Fort Bragg, I kept on getting flare-ups and I kept on getting hospitalized. And that's when the Army said, look, we had to put you on this new medication, but the problem is that this medication will make you non-deployable. So now this is where my predicament's at from what I told you earlier.
Right.
When I asked him, so, okay, so non-deployable, what can I do or not do? Can I do PT like everybody else? Yes. Can I do field exercise like everybody else? Yes. Can I do PT test like everybody else? Yes. Can I do, everything? I even went to NTC on this thing, and they say yes. The only thing you cannot do is deploy. So you could go through the Med board and request to, you're not going to reclass to an MOS because you're basically going to be you are on the MOS, so mostly put the veterans, or not the veterans, the soldiers that have medical issues.
Okay.
Will allow you to stand that MOS, but it will have to go through a place where it's non-deployable. Daily, all I know since I joined the military was to deploy or train to deploy.
Yeah.
and I deploy or train my soldiers to deploy. So it didn't sit well with me to train the soldiers for deployment, and then the day off for me to sit on the sideline and say, wave them off and say, hey, have a nice day. Now, at this time, I was a staff sergeant. I have been an NCOIC position of battalion at brigade level. I've been a detachment sergeant or first sergeant for the CID. I had done every position I could possibly get to. Plus, I was doing all my schools, right? I have BNOC or, you know, PLDC, SLC. I had them all. I even had the first sergeant's commander's course, which is required to become a detachment sergeant. So I was looking at a promotion for E7 because that was something that was in my head, how to get to that next promotion. So I always look at the promotion list and the letter that they used to send out. They used to say what they were looking at in that promotion board to promote those people to song first class and master sergeant. So I always get the classes that were there, and I would try to get myself ahead and try to work my way to those schools. So I sat down with my wife, my current wife, and I told her, how I felt about for the next 10, 11 years as a staff sergeant, possibly a sergeant first class, but just doing a job and sitting there. And it didn't sit well with me. So I opted to get out. She said, well, if that's what you want to do, I'll support you. And I mean, it took me 6 months to kind of come to terms because I had kept on going around like my seniors and peers to see how they felt about it. Most of them wanted for me to stay, but I just didn't feel right by doing so. So I ended up choosing to get out in 2014.
Damn, dude. I definitely didn't know all that, and I'm sorry that you had to go through all that pain and suffering for all those years, man. That's horrible, dude. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
I
What
mean, it's better
uh,
than physical issues. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It just sucks that you had to go so many times to Blanchfield Community Hospital and get shunned away essentially, and then you had to go somewhere else to get a little bit better treatment when you should have been getting all that all along on the base.
listen,
Shouldn't have to go far for that, man.
it comes. It shouldn't come to a surprise, but I'm on that same thing, right? When I was getting ready to
Right.
separate, um, my doctor at the time, because they actually changed me from the doctor. Um, the doctor that I had at the time, she said, "Hey, you need a refill for your anxiety medication." I'm like, "Anxiety?
What?
The hell?" She was like, "Yeah, since you've been diagnosed with anxiety since 2006, 2007." Oh well, shit. If you never gave me medication for that back then, why would I need them now? But I
Wow.
thought, like, I was always in a hurry, I would say, so to speak. When somebody's anxious, you see them moving around, doing things here and there.
Yeah.
That was me, but for me, it actually worked in my benefit because it kept me moving, it kept me going, it kept me doing things,
Yeah.
and to keep my mind away from things. And I never saw it as something negative. You know what I mean? It actually helped me because when you give me something, I'll get it done, and people saw that I was getting things done. So that kind of helped me get ahead of my promotions and schools and things of that nature. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's when they told me that I needed medications for. I was like, man, forget that. I'm so many years since I don't need it.
No, I don't blame you. I wouldn't have took it either. Probably would have just gave you worse side effects than it would to help you anyways, man, like all the other stuff does.
Yeah.
So how was the med board process once you decide after those 6 months to go through it? Like, was it pretty? Did you go to like WTU? Was that even a thing when you were there?
If
Was it
WTU
easy?
has started,
Okay, okay,
WTU has started, but I was not eligible for WTU because I did not have a physical impediment. That's the way they saw it as. I did not have a physical impediment at the time. You had to have some kind of knee injury, leg injury, extremities gone, or something like that for you to go to the WTU battalion.
that's wild to think that.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, cool, it is what it is. So I had to get my separation process while doing my job. So it was not like, okay, when you go to WTU, you kind of focus on yourself and doing your met board and your appointments and
Yeah,
trying to get a job and get your family situated. No, I had to do that and do my job. But I was lucky that I did have a supervisor at the time that kind of, he worked with me. He kind of gave me a little bit of room to, hey, as long as you tell me where you're gonna be at and you tell me what your appointments, keep me up to date. We'll work it out. So that
Okay.
was a blessing. That was a blessing.
How long did it take from like start to finish? A couple months?
Um, I would tell you that it was faster than I wanted to, because my last hospitalization was in March, and that's when they said you going through this medication is gonna make you non-deployable. When the next 90 days, we're gonna start the med board process, and they did actually before the 90 days, and then within 90 days from that, I was out of the army.
And that's not that long. That's not a lot of time, even because you still going to work. They still want you to, do a little bit of work. But at least you had a little bit of leeway to get stuff done. But like you said, it goes by fast. And what was your plan for getting out?
So, um, my original plan really, I didn't have a plan. Like I had so many months of vacation that um, I kind of like focused. Okay, I got 6 months of vacation. I'm gonna try to get the job that I want. I want to work in human resource for a company. Um, my mistake that I made, that I try to tell my soldiers, was get at least one class done at a time. I didn't follow that, throughout my military career. If you take one college class per semester during your military career, you'll get out with a bachelor easily if you do more than 4 years.
Yeah,
But I didn't. So I waited, and when I was going to school, I was not going to school for the same thing that I was going. I was working because I figure I'm going to retire from 20 years of doing this. I don't need a degree, not at least in that area. So I started doing criminal justice. I was doing other things, right? But I didn't get to finish those either. And then when I got out, of course, I can't get a job on criminal justice because now my back is bad, my knees are bad. So it's kind of like counterproductive to get a job as a police officer when you have these injuries.
right.
So I wasn't prepared for that. So the first 5 months I spent looking for the job that I wanted into human resource, or something of that nature. And then my last 30 days, I just wanted to get a job on whatever. I needed to continue getting paid because I was getting that money from the army plus the BAH. But I needed to continue that money after my 6 month of vacation. Well, and so things comes in a blessing. I was fortunate that I got called for an interview to become a veteran service officer in Montgomery County, and I did the interview. And exactly 30 days from my last pay of the army, I started working as a veteran service officer.
How'd you find out about that job? Did you put in for it, or was it just luck of the draw? You knew somebody,
So
or
I had somebody that had told me, hey, there's a job in the county as a veteran service officer. It's kind of like human resource, but you're looking for benefit for the veterans. So go ahead and apply for it. And I did. And it was pretty nice. I applied for it. I went to the interview. I was a little hesitant because there were other people that had higher ranking in the military, and they might have gotten the job. But they also look at the time, they were looking at those that might have longevity. If you're a retired first sergeant, some retired first sergeant, they're already making money. They're not gonna sit and take somebody that's gonna tell them what to do and bark orders at them. They're like, man, to hell with this job.
yeah,
So for me, I guess it was more comfort thing that they were able to see that I didn't mind. I didn't mind that because I wanted to start from the bottom, and then because I didn't really serve all 20 years, that I didn't have a retirement check per se, and I needed the money, so I would take the orders. you know.
right.
And it was a blessing in disguise, man, because I got the job, I got the money. The pay wasn't all that, but it was a lot better than a lot of other jobs out there. Then it was kind of in line with the kind of job that I'm used to doing, human resource and documentation search and things of that nature. And then on top of it, I got to help people that, to me, even when I was in the army, that was my biggest thing, is When somebody came in the S1, their pay was messed up, their leave was corrected, or the NCOR was not done, or the award was not done. To me, that was the best reward that I got when I got to help someone, and they'll come back to me and say, "Hey, man, thank you for helping out, submitting my leave, or thank you for correcting my pay, or thank you for doing my BAH." To me, that was my reward. So now here am I helping out veterans, and those veterans that will spend years trying to get a 10% increase, a 20% increase on their VA ratings, and they weren't able or successful. And now I'm going from 30% to 50% to 70% to 100%. And they will all come back, and they'll make some of them will make an appointment just to come back and say thank you. And to me, that was my reward.
No, dude, that's awesome, man. You always been the one to help everybody. So, and I always tell you thank you. And I'm gonna tell you again right now. I appreciate everything you've done for me over the years while I was in and while I was out. I still remember when I called you. I was crying, dude. I was crying. I had a newborn kid living in my mom and dad's house. My dad's dying of cancer. I'm yeah, I'm at my family's house, but I'm in a foreign environment. I'm used to being on my own and having a little bit of money, and I got out the military with nothing, and you helped me, told me to go to the VSO, and I went from 0 to 30 to 60 to 80 and to 100%, man. So I really do appreciate you and all that you've done for me personally. So another thank you for everything.
My pleasure, man. I still remember that like today.
You're
It's
like,
always
dude,
been
you
a
got dude, you're like, dude, you got to calm down and you got to go to the VSO. I was like, I don't know, man. It just all hit me at once, and it was overload, bro. It's overload, dude. So for anyone that's out there listening to this, conversation, don't wait to get to that point right there because you will get overloaded. You might have all this stuff going on at once. It might be new life. It might be death. It might be both. It might be living at a friend's couch or whatever the case. So just be proactive on your documentation and get that appointment with the VSO before you get out the military because you don't want to wait till it's too late like I did. Please don't be like me. You know, seriously.
we could say that 1,000 times. We could repeat it 1,000 times, and it wouldn't be 1,001 times.
Hold on, you said you broke. I think you got like a little wit. You said you could say it 1,000 times, but what?
And we'll have to say it 1,001 times.
Yeah, you're right though. I mean, don't wait till the times get tough to do it. Just take action when it's a lot easier while you're still getting that paycheck from the military. While you still have cushion because when you get out, you just can find an excuse. Well, I can't. I got to go to work every day. How am I going to go to the VA? Or nah, man, it's not really for me. I don't really deserve it. Like all that's a lie. You're telling yourself a lie because you're gonna make time for what you like to do. You're gonna make time to watch television. You're gonna make time to eat food. You're gonna make time to sleep. You're gonna have to make a sacrifice to take care of yourself if you wait to the last minute. So, did you get a VA? You got your rating before you got out, right?
So when I got out with a 30% from the military and a 60% from the VA.
Okay.
So um, my VSO, when I started working, my supervisor was said, let me take a look at your disability rating. And when I showed them, I was sort of content with the 60% because I didn't know any better. I didn't
Right.
understand the VA system. I was born in a self-developed country. Everything that I get is because I earn it, and I am appreciative of things that I do get. So I didn't take the 60% as an offensive rating. That was awesome because these medical conditions I have at least was going to be medically taken care of, which is really my biggest concern. I am at least getting my medications and my medical treatment for Crohn's, which is not a funny, something light to take. So, um, but my boss said, let me take a look at your ratings and let me take a look at your medical history. And I kind of learned that from him because there were things that I have that I could have filed a claim for, but I did not know that I could have filed a claim for. And there were things that I was dealing with that should have been on that rating, but I didn't know. There were things that they were rated low, and based on the severity of my medical history, they should have been rated higher. So he kind of explained that to me, and he learned from his process when he got out because he only got like 10%, and they told him, "Oh, don't worry about it." And I mean, his back is so bad they can't even put a tide on from his his spine from his sacroiliac all the way down to all the way up to his neck. But they tell him, oh, you only get 10%, and you should be glad that you get that 10%. And so he kind of started doing his own research and started getting his ratings, looking at and taking care of. He started doing his own thing, and eventually he became the supervisor for that same office where they told him that. So he was now
Damn.
teaching me how to do that, and I kind of learned from him. He kind of explained that to me. I had a great mentor, Miss Kelly Brown. I will never forget her. She or Kelly Mesberg, but now Kelly Brown. She was awesome. She knew the CFR for the VA like the palm of her hand, and she knew the ins and out of it. And she kind of started helping me out because realistically, my Crohn's was getting rated at the same level for somebody who has IBS. Now, I'm not going to take away from the IBS. That is not an easy thing to deal with either. But the person who had IBS was not getting hospitalized as often as I was. The person who had IBS was not taking the medications I was taking. The person who had IBS did not have the stress of life that I have. So for me to get rated under the same category and the same rating, that was a slap on the face. But I didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not
So,
what
so
you did. Yeah, like you said, you were happy with what you got, but like there was no one there to point you in the right direction. And shout out to Kelly Brown for doing that, man. We all need that, dude. No one, they don't give you the CFR when you're A capping out the army. You don't even I didn't even know what that was until probably a couple years ago. But it's
and
people like that,
they
people like you, people like all of us that need to just continue to push down the right information out to people. That way we can all get taken care of because we're not taking away from one another. You're losing out on what's yours. We sacrificed. We all raised our hand. We all took the oath, and we should be compensated for if we were hurt during duty. So
and Kelly Brown was definitely somebody that I always look up to. In fact, some people call me now from Tennessee and they're like, hey. I would like love that you got 2 people, 3 people in this office that might still be there. Go ask for them. These are the people that you should ask for. They will do everything. They'll do backflip to help you.
yeah,
But the CFR, they did tell me about it when I was going through the medboard process. The problem is that you have, according to you and your mindset, right, as a person who got a lot of another stressor, you have a family they got to provide for. You got kids you got to provide for. You're not thinking about this damn CFR. You're thinking about how I'm going to provide for my family.
yeah,
You know what
no,
I
not at
mean?
all.
So it's like I'm gonna throw that blurb in there while I'm talking to you about separation, and you're not gonna remember the blurb,
That's
and
true.
that's basically how it's done. And when you get out, you out there in limbo, and you were like, well, nobody told me about that, and they're gonna turn around, and be like, you see this document right here? See, you see that number right there? Yeah, that's a CFR 38, right? Well, yeah, but I didn't know.
No, I'm at Pizza Hut working. I don't have time to study that. I'm trying to make ends meet to pay the rent, $2,300 rent in St. Pete or something like that. Yeah, you're right though, dude. But when you get that 100%, doesn't it change your life, your family's life trajectory? It might not be overnight, but benefits like that open up that you never even probably knew about. I never knew about half the stuff until you start, getting on that track. Oh, this is what happens when you get 100% permanent total. Oh, you get these benefits, or you get property tax, you get this, you get the license plate. All that stuff may sound minute, but realistically, man, I was able to leave my job contracting because I knew I had something to fall back on, or else I know I wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, but what do you say?
I the way I see the VA benefits is the VA money, and that's why I try to explain to the veterans. The money the VA pays you is to kind of match what you otherwise could be making if you was at least at a 90% healthy to sustain your family.
Right.
If the way I used to explain it to the veterans, if you take a good paying job, you'll make $3,000 a day doing 30 days. And that's basically being at 100% with the VA, or what it used to be back then, and now it's a little higher. But if you make $3,000 a month, that means every day is worth $100. But every day you don't show up to work because your back hurt, you got a headache or a migraine, or your knees hurt, you losing $100 a day.
Yeah.
So that's the way you gotta look at it, and the VA pays you for that. But I always look at the VA's compensation as it's all politics, and in the same way that we get it now, it could be gone tomorrow. So I would try to still maintain a job despite of having that income. It is a blessing. Don't get me wrong, it is a hell of a
Absolutely.
blessing. Some people don't realize it, but it does take a lot of the stress away from you. Although,
Yeah, yeah,
some people get adjusted to that money they're making kind of quick, and then now they're back in the hole anyway.
that's
But
true.
that is 30 days of work that you don't have to worry about technically. That's like
No, you're right.
some people have two jobs so they can sustain a lifestyle. Well, at least you only got to work one because you got another one that is being done for you.
Yeah,
You know,
don't if you get the 100% or whatever disability you get, it's kind of smart to not let the lifestyle inflation creep up. It's easier said than done. I mean, I know when I was in the army, dude, all we used to do is blow our money. You go deployment, even before deployment. Oh, we're leaving. Oh, max the credit card out. Okay, now you're paying the credit card off the whole deployment. Okay, we're coming back from deployment. Oh, let's go to Kickers. Let's go to Timbers. We got to live. We just got back. Got to buy bottles. Got to do this. It's like you're young and dumb when when you join the military. I guess for most of us, but I guess you live and learn through that too about money management and financial well-being. And you had kids while you were in, and you were still young. But once you have a kid, you got to take care of other people or your wife. So I guess you grew up real quick compared to I was 28 when I had my son, kind of still young, but it all hit me at once like a damn claymore mine. Um, I want to ask you a question about working with all these different veterans when you were VSO in Clarksville and when you were working up in New York. What was like some of the common denominators as far as like people weight? Like, what did you see that some veterans had in common that maybe we could shed light on now that won't continue to happen?
so what we all have in common, and I'm guilty of that, is not knowing how to explain to your doctor what is wrong with you, what is your concern, how does your medical issue affect you, and where does it hurt. You know, like my Crohn's doctor was the first one that actually helped me because, like I said, I spent 3 years without getting diagnosed, and then when I finally got diagnosed, nobody really told me anything, and I really just went to the doctor whenever I had a flare up. Because I was so used to take some Motrin and drink some water and have a nice day that I would just go in for Campbell. Once you became an E4, E5, you went through a quick training. They give you a little card that then you went to the pharmacy and you asked for over-the-counter medications. Right? Basically, that's what they gave you every time you went to sick call.
Yeah,
So cough drop, cough medicine, or Motrin. So
yeah,
with this card, you just went to the pharmacy and said, "Hey, I want to get cough drop or cough medication or Tylenol or Motrin," and they gave them to you. So I just did that, right? But then fast forward 2012, I go back to Fort Campbell. I get this new GI doctor, and he kept on calling me because I was supposed to go in for an appointment, but I had lost my faith in the medical field, so I was like, nah, forget that, I'm not going. And he kept on calling me until he said, look, you need to come in, or I'm going to call your commander. So I was like, okay, let me go, let me go on to this GI doctor and see what's going on. So I kind of explained to him my situation as to why I didn't have a trust in the medical field. And then he was the one that actually removed me from that medication that I was supposed to be on for a few months, and I was there for 5 years.
yeah.
Um, so he removed me now from it. Steroids. It was a steroid. That's the word I was looking for exactly.
Okay, okay, I got you.
So I was on a steroid technically for 5 years, and um, he basically said, "Look, we need to take you off the medication. If we take you off from that medication," and he asked me, "So tell me, what is your Crohn's like?" And I was like, "I got a stomach pain." He was like, "Nah, your Crohn's is more than that. Tell me, how does it make you feel? How should they go by? And what does it hurt?" I didn't even know how to explain where in my intestine system or in my stomach where it actually hurt. And he was like, "You need to pay attention to that." And then on another visit, I went and he was like, "Oh, so when was the last time you used the bathroom?" And I was like, well, "Shit, I don't know," because that was a big thing on my Crohn's because I used to go from really constipated to the other end of the spectrum of having extreme diarrhea or vice
Wow.
versa. And I didn't really pay attention to that. Like, you need to pay attention to that because that's how you know where you stand. And I started paying attention to that. So I knew that I could spend easily 3 days without using the restroom, maybe 4 days. And on the fifth day, I had to amp up my medication, take a double dose. And then from that sixth day, I didn't go to the restroom. Then I knew I was gonna get hospitalized, right? So I
Yeah,
kind of kept track with that, and he kept on asking me about certain things. So I started paying attention to that. And then I started having, or not having, but I started telling them about my other issues that my primary care provider wasn't paying attention to. I was telling them about how my knees hurt, my ankles hurt, and like out of nowhere, it would just start hurting. And of course, you got wear and tear, but if you haven't been running or doing no rug marches in Vocambo and you got your knees are hurting, your back is hurting, like you just got done doing one, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So I started explaining that to him, and he started showing me the link between Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis. And he started explaining to me that all these things that I was having issues with, also because of the Crohn's, or how the Crohn's affected, or how those things affected my Crohn's. So, for example, having anxiety or depression. If I get anxious, if I get depressed, that affects my intestinal system. That causes a flare up on my stomach. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So all
absolutely.
all those things, he started explaining that to me. So when I became a veteran service officer, I started realizing that it was not just me. There was a lot of veterans in the same predicament. They went to the VA, they filed a claim, went to the VA, did the CMP exam, came back, and they were like, "Well, I didn't get an increase. Why the hell didn't get an increase?" And they'll show me the letter, and the VA letter explained to you what grants or merit you an increase.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they'll read the letter, be like, "I have this, I have this, I have that, I have all the damn symptoms that I have here." And I will look at it and be like, "Cool," and I'll look at the medical record, but none of those symptoms will be mentioned in the medical record.
Right.
So I that's when I come to the realization that we did not explain to our doctors what were our medical concerns, our medical issues, and to make them in line with what the VA requirement was. And I don't mean to make them in line like make it up. I mean to explain in the same terms that the VA is looking for. You see what I'm
No,
saying?
you're right. You got to match what you're saying with the CFR, or else you're gonna sell yourself short. I
Right.
did it before for the mental health. I went in and I got like 50%, and then I waited a couple years. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you opened a can of worms." Well, not if your
I
conditions
think I
have
think I
got
was
worse.
I think I was one of them that tell you that too.
Yeah,
That
that's all good.
you be careful with that because it open a kind of worm you don't want to get yourself into. But
Right.
it comes to that. If you explaining your medical issues within the reasonings to the doctor that they annotated that stuff in your medical records a proper way, it's not the same thing for you to say my knees hurt
Right.
when you go to the doctor. Then when you go to the doctor, say, look, when I'm going up a flight of stairs, I hear my knees popping and cracking. When I try to get on my vehicle, I had to sit on a certain way or stand in a certain way so that I could get in my vehicle.
No, you're
If
right.
I try to pick up my kids or my grandkids, I cannot do that proper squatting to lift up objects because if I do, I'm gonna fall with my kid. So you see what I'm saying? It's different than for you to go to the doctor and say, "Hey, my knees hurt. I'm here because my knees hurt," or "My
Oh
back
yeah,
hurt. I'm
absolutely.
here. I'm here because of my back hurt." It's different when you explain to them, "Look, I'm having these kind of issues. When I get up in the morning, this is how my back works. This is what the motions that I got to do. These are the things that I have to do in order for me to get up." These are the things that I do to if I want to pick up my kids or grab something from the cabinet, the lower cabinets in the kitchen. You have to be able to articulate a little bit better, so that the doctor could put their notes in properly. And then when your stuff goes to the VA, it is documented in a way that it goes in line with the severity of the medical condition according to the CFR.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you were the expert in that field, and can't stand any better. And like for people that don't really understand the whole system, is you might meet with a doctor for a CMP exam for 1 hour. That's the only time you're gonna have for them to put it in their notes, and they're gonna send it off to somebody else that doesn't even know you from nothing, and they're gonna make a decision based off those doctors or that nurse practitioner's notes. So you can't go in there and sell yourself short. You can't. You got to leave it all on the table, or else you're going to be either going back in there, you're going to give up because you think the VA is a failed system, or you're going to be in limbo until you figure out what you want to do because you didn't get what you deserve or you earned. You
But
know what I mean?
there's a funny connection between your brain and the doctor's office. You know that, right? Because you could be hurting today, like bad, really, really bad. And you be like, hey, man, I got my doctor's appointment tomorrow. I can't wait. So I could tell the doctor everything that's going on with me. I am hurting. I am
Yeah.
so bad that I cannot even get up this bed today. Then the next day, the day of the doctor's appointment, you get up, you go to the doctor's appointment, and there's nothing hurting you.
Oh, sh-
And then you go to the doctor. I said, so what are you here for today? You'd be like, well, I don't know. Yesterday, I was hurting, but today I'm not. So now you go to your CMP exam, right, for your medical issues that you've been hurting for the last 30 days every day, and the CMP examiner asks you, so what does it hurt you today? And you're like, well, nothing's hurting today.
Going right in the notes. That's going right in the notes too. They get you as soon as you get the door. Hey, how you doing today? I'm doing great. What about you? Oh, he's doing great today. How you feeling? I'm feeling great. What about you? You're feeling great. You discrediting yourself before you walk in the door and really get the
E-
whole exam going.
Even if you're just being polite, man. Even if you're just
Even
being
being polite,
polite.
even if you go in there with that fresh fade, like you that Dominican Sosua fade, you go in there with that skin fade and be like, damn, this dude's fresh as hell, man. He got Chron? Nah, man, not this guy, dude. Nah, not him.
And that's
But
how it is.
you're right, man. That's the reality of it, dude. It's kind of crazy, but I guess you just gotta work smarter, not harder in that, and lay it all out. But you miss being a VSO?
I miss it. I miss being able to help people. Um, I work in the airline now. I love working at the airline because the group that I work with, the group of people that I work with, they're awesome. You know, despite of everything that goes negative about the airline, I would say for the group of people that I work with, our goal is to always help people. It's 110, 120% we give to helping customers. And we cannot help everybody sometimes, and we cannot accommodate everyone. But we do push it 110, 120% to accommodate within what we can do. And that is an attitude that I enjoy. Oh, we got a delayed flight. Cool. Let's try to get everybody on. Make sure that everybody stays on board. We're gonna try to push this flight out. Those that want to get off, let's try to accommodate them within the next available flight. We try to do those things, but some people you just cannot accommodate everybody, and
Well,
you
some people
cannot.
you're just never gonna make happy, no matter what you do
Exactly,
for them. They're just miserable.
exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's
Exactly. But believe it or not, man, our and I'm just gonna say the airline. I work for JetBlue, and it's awesome to
oh,
see
they're
that the
great, dude.
people
They're great.
the people that I work with, at least down here in Southwest Florida, they are a team of people that are always looking out for the best interest of the customer. But again, you cannot always get everybody happy. You cannot always satisfy everybody's needs. So it's a matter of, well, let's do what we can. We understand that we cannot make everybody happy, and we just do that. But do I miss the VSO? I miss helping out veterans. And I would tell you that every veteran I come in contact with, I ask them, hey, within the time limit that I have, I work. Hey, so if you don't mind me asking where you serve, how you doing, how you sustaining, you know, have you talked to a VSO yet? If you come through here often, come and talk to me. I'll give you some guidance. I'll tell you where to go, what to do. And even at work, I have come in contact with a few veterans, so I have made it my goal, which is what I used to do when I was a VSO, to get you to 100%.
There you go.
I if I fall short of that goal, fine. But my goal is always to get you the best that is out there, and the best that is out there is 100%. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
As long as you meet the requirements, you are within the medical criteria of those things. There should be no reason why you should not be at 100%.
Yeah,
But then again, if you're not there, then you're not there. I can only help you to where you whatever you could prove. You know,
right.
you,
Yeah,
I'm not the one that makes the decision. The VA does makes the decision, but the VA makes the decision based on your medical needs and the medical condition. So, show me what your medical needs and your medical conditions are at, and we work with that. So everybody that I
yeah.
come in contact with that is a veteran, I tell them, hey, look, I work as a VSO. If you need any help, here's my number, here's my email. I will gladly help you out. Oh, but I will give you a commission. I don't do it because of commission. I do it because I enjoy it. And a lot of people had asked me why do I do this by commission because I have been able to help out a lot of people here since I moved to Florida 3 years ago, 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. Um, but I had never thought about doing it as a counselor or as an advisor and make money off of it.
A lot of people do that, but like you said, why it doesn't? You're gonna get blessed in another way by just helping people like that, dude. I feel the same way. I've I've helped people too, but I learned from you. I learned from other people that helped me, and I learned from not getting help to learn how to help myself a little bit and just try to pay it forward, dude. Because it's going to come back around another way. We don't need to make money off someone that needs. If someone's trying to look for 100%, they probably need the money more than we do. You know what I mean?
True.
So respect for you for keeping on the legacy of helping people, and I'm following behind your footsteps, and I've been doing that too. And I hope I can help as many people with this podcast, with everyone we get on here as a guest, and just keep it going, man. And dude, I was gonna ask you this one right here. Did you think you just pretend you're at Camp Buring PAX terminal when you go to work every day?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I was saying, I was just messing with you, but I was saying, do you just pretend that you're at Camp Buring running the PAX terminal every day when you go to the airport? I know you
No,
do.
no. I would never do that, man. I would
You
never do
hand
that.
out Jimmy Deans when they miss a flight. You hand out the Jimmy Dean meals,
Yeah.
meals
I
at the
do. I
box.
do hand out the Jimmy Dean. I'll make them form up a line and get.
Get your ID card out. You guys get your IOTV checked in, Kevlar checked in. All right, everyone line up. No, you guys missed a
Yeah.
flight. Go back to the movie tent. Go get some more McDonald's. Shut up.
I try not to take charge at work. I try not to add more responsibility than the one that I've been assigned to.
Yeah.
A lot of my coworkers, they want me to like step up and become a supervisor and things of that nature. And honestly, I wouldn't have time to do what I want to do to enjoy myself. I have a medical condition that, God forbid, could result in cancer or something like that, and my time is limited. So I'm trying to put a balance between life and work. And like I said earlier, Crohn's gets affected by anxiety and depression and stress. I don't want to add that because then I would spend more time hospitalized. Like this last year, in the last year actually, year and what's today, the 11th? We had
Uh-huh.
Ian,
Yeah.
Hurricane Ian. I got
12.
hospitalized. I got hospitalized right after Ian the next day. I went to the hospital because I couldn't take it. The day of the hurricane, I spent it in the bed the whole time because I thought I was gonna die. And then the next day I went to the ER and they said you need to get an emergency surgery, but they didn't have a doctor available in the area nor the hospital where I went to. They were closing it down because uh, it was going to become the morgue for Fort Myers here in Southwest Florida because of the hurricane. And I found a specialist. I called the VA. I got frustrated with them because I didn't mind. They were like, "Oh, you need to find a local hospital." I'm like, "We just got hit by a hurricane. What local hospital am I going to find?" So I kind of started doing research and search, and I found a hospital in Naples that was open. And they had some doctors. So I went over there, and I felt bad because I seen a lot of people in worse situations that I was in. That I told my wife we could just leave. I'm just gonna ask for some pain meds and some things. I'm just gonna go home and I'll come back another time. And there was a doctor in the ER there, and I praised her for it. I explained to her what had happened the day before I went to the ER. They did some scans, some tests, and I actually had an application that showed the results of what happened. And when I showed it to her, she's like, "Oh hell no, you're not leaving here. If you leave here, you'll die."
Damn.
And I didn't understand the seriousness of what was found and what the result was until she told me. And so she started calling doctors, and she finally got a doctor that came into the surgery on an emergency situation. But ever since, because of stress and because of my medical condition and because I attribute most of this to the VA doctor that didn't want to give me the medication, the proper medication, but that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Um, I've been getting a surgery every month and a half since. Every month and a half, 2 months, I'll be getting a surgery. And about 2 months ago, I got a colostomy bag put on because they said we're gonna put a colostomy bag temporarily because then that will alleviate the amount of surgeries you have continually gotten yourself into for the last year. So I said, cool. Um, and so far, I haven't gotten a surgery every month and a half since. But only been 2 months, so I'm gonna keep on praying that stays that way. Um, but I don't want to add stress with a new job title that yes, they feel that I'm gonna make things better. Okay, cool, but how is that gonna make me better? Because if I'm not better, if I'm not taking care of myself medically, that means I'm gonna spend more time at the hospital. If I spend more time at the hospital, that means I spend less time at work. Then I will look like I'm irresponsible, and I'm just gonna fail all around. So no, I don't want to add stuff. I know myself. I know where I'm at. I don't want to add more stress than what I need to. And I want to spend time with my wife and kids. My kids are growing. They're almost out of the house. So technically sort of just the wife and I, because my kids are now teenagers. Whenever we want to go somewhere, they don't really want to go because they got,
Yeah.
they got their own mentality, and I understand that. But I do want to enjoy the time that I have with my wife, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, and yeah, I don't think you'd look like a shitbag or nothing like that if you were ever to do that because you're good. You've always been a great leader, and people might not know what's going on with you at work. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But yeah, that's good that you have that mindset of I got to draw the line somewhere, and they probably want you. They probably want you there because you're a great leader. That's why they want you to step up. But respect to you for saying like, nah, man, like what's more important, family or work? You got your VA stuff. You got like money is money, man. But like you're never gonna get your time back. That's the one thing you can never get back. You can get money back. You can get whatever, but like your time is more valuable than anything. So, um,
Yes, sir.
but yeah, and we still got to do something, man. I know you tried to hang out with me one time, and I don't know, I just wasn't feeling myself when you came up to Sarasota. So I apologize to you on that a couple years ago, but I'm gonna make it up to you, man. We're gonna do
One day,
something.
we're still in the same area, brother. So one day, don't worry.
Hey, we good. So, all right. Hey, yeah, we good though, man. But I'm always here for you if you need anything. And like I said, appreciate everything you've done. I just wanted to. I asked another question, and I want to open it up to you to say anything we'd like to say. And but what's helped you the most get through all the medical stuff that you're going through? Like, what's helped you the most? Maybe you could help somebody else going through the same thing as you.
Um, I'll tell you the biggest challenge that we have for veterans that have uh, PTSD and um, that unbreakable mentality. It's hard. You remember that time frame that we had the brand of 22, right? And it's always been associated with, to me, the way I look at it is, it has a lot to do with your pride. That you was a very independent individual, and you actually have people that depended on you, so you always facilitated and provided, and you hold yourself to that high standard. And when I started working with veterans, they told me one of the things that I learned from the Vietnam veteran, which I made those my priority to help, because thanks to them we get today what we get today. But one thing I learned from them was that they used to say, you got to learn how to retire,
Mm.
because a lot of us do not know how to retire. Here we are, 65, 70, 75 years old, we're still working because we don't know how to retire. So you have to learn how to take the layers off, the protector layer, the provider layer, the one layer. You're the one that they look after for everything. And you need to learn how to leave that pride and that ego and leave it behind little by little, and humble yourself to the point where you don't have to agree with everything, but you can understand everything. And just kind of tone yourself down to humble yourself to, look, I can do this, I cannot do that. I am no longer this young. I no longer have this much health. I no longer have this much money. You're at currently, and you have to learn how to cope with that. You cannot drown yourself in the things that you cannot do, because there's a reason why you cannot do it. You know what I mean? Whether it's
Yeah.
age, or God might have placed it in your path that way, so you didn't get there because He'll save you for something else. And you know, I, I'm a religious person. I'm just not the religious person that believes into one religion and or a church or things of that nature. I believe in God, and that's a whole different topic. But I believe in God, and if He has a plan for me, He has a plan for me. I'm not gonna force the plan.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go with things as they come, and deal with them. And we all have to learn how to do that, because at the end of the day, you may miss out on a lot of things because you have that mentality of that ego and that pride and the one and the person that had to come up with a solution and the person that has to do everything, because that's how you was brought up in the military. You no
Yeah, you're
longer
right.
you can no longer do the aerosol course, so don't think that you could do that. You can no longer run the 2 miles at a 9 minute pace, and that was slow, but you can no longer run the 2 mile the 2 mile run at a 9 minute pace. So you have to learn how to cope with those things and know yourself.
No, you're right. Good advice. What I just want to open it up to you if you want to share anything else. If not, we'll shut it down for the session. But the floor is yours, man.
No, appreciate you inviting me over. I know this is long overdue. You've been inviting me ever since you had the idea. I'm not a camera person, so that hence why I had the camera turned off. I kind of try to stay away from that. But I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing, and for those veterans out there that are still looking out for help or looking for someone, or don't get what they need to get to or want to get to, don't get discouraged. Always stay up to date. Read the newsletter that comes out. Talk to other veterans because a lot of time you'll find out from other veterans things that you didn't know that you can and cannot do, and they may actually end up helping you without you even asking for them.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you taking me up on the offer and look forward to getting up with you sooner than later. Hope you're feeling good. Like I said before, I'm always here for you if you need me. Guys and girls, thank you guys all for listening in. If you want to share your experiences, like, comment, subscribe, I'll reach out to you. We'll make it happen. Continue to be great. Everyone has greatness within inside. And until next time, have a blessed one, y'all. Take care.